As we delve into the debate on whether COVID-19 could be considered a bioweapon, it's crucial to set the context. Is it merely a product of nature or something more sinister? Today, we explore this provocative query. COVID-19's unprecedented impact has sparked a range of opinions. Could a virus, such devastating reach, truly be an accidental outcome?
While the idea of COVID-19 as a bioweapon might initially seem far-fetched, it's a topic worth exploring. History has shown that biological warfare isn't a new concept. Could nations really be deploying such biological tools in modern times, and what proof do we have?
It's a compelling perspective, Guy, but let's not overlook the scientific consensus. Most evidence indicates a natural origin. How do conspiracy theories gain such traction, often overshadowing well-established facts? Are we more inclined to sensational narratives, even in the face of hard evidence?
There's an emotional element here too. Fear and uncertainty often drive people towards seeking dramatic explanations. As we unravel the truth behind COVID-19, can we balance rational analysis with empathetic understanding of these fears?
As we explore the concept of COVID-19 as a potential bioweapon, let's reflect on the definition of biological weapons historically. Historically, biological weapons have ranged from poison arrows to the plague being used in warfare. What aspects of this history resonate in today's context?
Consider how countries have previously used bioweapons during conflicts. Despite international treaties banning them, the allure of such covert power remains potent. Could nations be tempted to secretly develop bioweapons under the guise of scientific research?
The idea is intriguing, Guy, but if COVID-19 were engineered, it would probably leave behind traces. Wouldn't our global scientific community have found such evidence by now? Is it possible that international collaborations actually reinforce natural origins over bioweapon theories?
What about the psychological impact of history? The very mention of bioweapons evokes deep-seated fears. As we learn from outbreaks like anthrax and smallpox, how do we reconcile historical fear with modern science? Can historical trauma shape contemporary discourse?
Ultimately, while history offers lessons, today's discourse must also consider cultural narratives. How do stories of past weaponizations influence current public opinion on pandemics and their origins? Shifting from historical context, it's important to address the scientific evidence available today. What does the data tell us about the natural vs. engineered origins of COVID-19?
The scientific community leans heavily towards the natural origin theory, bolstered by genetic sequencing of the virus. Yet, there's skepticism from some quarters. What makes some doubt the data? Could transparency issues in early reporting have fueled these suspicions?
It's critical to note that experts agree on genetic markers indicating natural evolution. However, the gap in absolute transparency does leave room for speculation. What role does public trust play in accepting scientific evidence or preferring conspiracy theories?
Public trust significantly influences how information is received. In times of crisis, emotional narratives often overshadow logical discourse. How can we effectively communicate science to counteract misinformation without dismissing people's concerns?
Indeed, bridging the gap between science and the public is vital. Going forward, how do we enhance scientific literacy to prevent future misinformation? Can we create a unified narrative that respects both the science and the emotional experiences of people? It's time to talk about the scientific perspective. What does the current data say about the origins of COVID-19, and how reliable is this information?
Most researchers suggest a natural origin, supported by detailed analyses of the virus's genetic structure. Still, doubts persist in some circles. Could initial misinformation have seeded these suspicions?
Experts widely agree on natural roots, but transparency gaps can leave room for doubt. Public trust is pivotal. How does it influence acceptance, scientific conclusions, or preference for conspiracies?
Trust dynamics are crucial, especially when emotional stories can outshine evidence. How do we communicate science compellingly to combat misinformation while being sensitive to fears?
How can we build a deeper trust in science moving forward and unify narratives that appreciate both evidence and human experiences? Let's explore how the pandemic redefined international relations. With COVID-19 potentially perceived as a bioweapon, trust among nations became crucial. How did these dynamics shift global alliances or tensions?
COVID-19 intensified distrust, with countries scrutinizing each other's health measures and data transparency. Did the pandemic reinforce existing geopolitical rivalries, or did it reignite calls for cooperation?
It's interesting, Guy. The initial blame game was intense, yet it highlighted the importance of international cooperation for global health security. Could the pandemic be a catalyst for stronger alliances in a post-pandemic world?
But let's not forget nations' strategic interests. How did the pandemic shift the power balance between global superpowers? Was it a battleground for influence, or an opportunity for unity?
Reflecting on these shifts, how can we ensure that global healthcare cooperation prevails over division? What lessons can be drawn to foster resilience against future crises? Ethical and moral considerations are crucial when discussing COVID-19 potentially as a bioweapon. How does this affect our views on global responsibility and accountability? Are we prepared to face such ethical dilemmas?
If COVID-19 were a deliberate creation, it raises serious moral questions about humanity's readiness to harness such power. How do we distinguish between preparation and paranoia in addressing these moral issues?
It's important to consider that even discussing such possibilities can lead to stigmatization and increased fear. How do we responsibly address these theories without further dividing our societies?
On a broader level, this debate touches on issues of power and control. Should any nation have the power to create or deploy such biological threats? How do we ensure ethical standards are upheld globally?
Reflecting on these perspectives, how can we foster a world grounded in ethical principles regarding bioweapons while still being vigilant against potential threats? What global agreements or frameworks are needed? The media plays a pivotal role in shaping perceptions around COVID-19 as a potential bioweapon. How has media coverage influenced public opinion on this topic? Are there responsibilities or biases that need addressing?
Media outlets often highlight sensational theories, which can overshadow scientific facts. Is the drive for ratings compromising accurate reporting? How can media balance engaging content with responsible journalism?
Social media amplifies these narratives, sometimes without fact-checking. How does this viral spread of misinformation affect public understanding and trust? Can media platforms implement more rigorous checks?
Yet, media also serves as a tool for accountability, shedding light on potential missteps by authorities. How can it balance criticism with avoiding undue panic? Does transparency in reporting alleviate or exacerbate public fears?
Considering these perspectives, what role should media play in shaping public discourse on global health threats? Can it foster informed discussion while mitigating fear? As we conclude our discussion on COVID-19 as a bioweapon, let's reflect on future directions. What lessons have we learned, and where do we go from here?
It's clear we need stronger global cooperation and transparency. How can we build trust between nations to prevent future crises?
We must also focus on enhancing public scientific literacy. What role do education and media play in fostering a more informed society?
Emotions and misconceptions are inevitable. Finding a balance is key. Can empathetic communication bridge gaps in understanding and skepticism?
Our journey from fear to understanding is ongoing. How can our global community work together to shape a resilient and hopeful future?